I'm a man just like everybody else, and the only thing that keeps me from heading toward the flame is the kindness, the grace, and the mercy of God. And I recognize it. And I think it's a great place to be, is always on your knees, always dependent, always recognizing that you're one bad decision away from losing everything.
Let's go back to the beginning, okay? Teen Idol. I'm looking at Tiger Beat magazine. We're talking, all of this really fun stuff that happened to you. Start at the beginning, okay? You grew up. You didn't even know to be an actor. You didn't know. Okay, no. Start at the beginning.
Yeah.
In the beginning, God created the.
There it is. I like it.
So in the very beginning, let's see. So I have 3 little sisters. Dad's a school teacher, teaches math and PE. My mom's at home with us teaching macrame classes in the garage. Remember macrame?
Sure. Yes, we made beautiful macrames.
That's right. Pot hangers and mail carry. Yeah.
Yes, the whole thing.
I never wanted to be an actor. I wanted to grow up and become a surgeon, a doctor. But my mom was friends with Adam Rich's mother. Now, Adam was on a show called 8 is Enough. Okay. He was a little kid on that show. Yeah. And she would always say to my mom, you should take your kids to this agent and see if they could get some representation and, do a McDonald's commercial. So my mom did, and she signed me up, and I started working on little things here and there.
What age?
I was 9.
Okay.
Never really liked it, didn't really want to do it. I was always annoyed having to brush my hair and tuck my shirt in to go drive an hour in traffic to audition for the next commercial.
But you were an adorable little 9-year-old, right?
I used to be cute. I don't know what happened, but I was adorable as a kid. And
we all grow up.
Some of these pictures could prove that. But when I was about 14, I auditioned for this new TV show starring Alan Thicke called Growing Pains. And at that time, it was just another pilot. There's lots of pilots every year. Most of them never make it. But this one was different.
But you were late. So tell the late part.
So I was late for the audition, probably because I was dragging my feet. I didn't want to brush my hair, tuck in my shirt. And my mom just dropped me off in the parking lot and said, run in there and see if they'll still let you audition. So I knocked on the door. They said, I'm sorry, auditions are done. I said, my mom's going to kill me. Please just let me audition. And so they let me in, and I auditioned, and they called me back. And I got another call back, and eventually auditioned for the network, and they gave me the role. If that hadn't happened, we wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have met my wife.
Yeah.
Who knows where the Lord would have me right now if it weren't for showing up at a late audition.
You'd be a doctor, you'd be in Scrubs, and
I could
this
be.
pandemic thing would be all about, okay.
I don't even want to think about that.
He wouldn't have a pandemic if he was a doctor.
There we go.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna be bouncing back and forth here. First of all, Kirk, your present day contribution to what you're doing here at TBN is super meaningful. Thank you for what you're doing. Takeaways is just an unbelievable show. So your platform that was created by an audition that you were late for, okay?
And made everybody feel sorry for you.
And you went from this adorable little kid that did, 9 seasons of a network series, Growing Pains, and then that made a way for kind of what you do today. Take us to one of the meaningful moments of takeaways and how this is working for you.
So now, first of all, I never wanted to be an actor. And so to be doing a talk show like Takeaways and meeting so many interesting people, having a chance to learn and have these fascinating conversations and then share them with the world and then give some actionable takeaways that we can download into our life for the sake of improving our faith, making our families healthier is awesome. This is an honor and something I never would have planned for my life if I were writing the script.
Right.
Again, I wanted to become a doctor. And so I look back now and I say, wow, God had a story planned out that I had no clue about, and I'm so glad that it went that way, that he saved me at 18 years old. I was an atheist, not looking for God, didn't want to go to church, and yet here I am. And wow, I'm super grateful.
How did you get even interested in knowing the Lord? How did it?
You go from below zero because you're an atheist at a young age.
How did you know you were an atheist or feel like you were one?
So I wouldn't have called myself a strong atheist as we know that term today. I think I would have said there's no evidence for God. There's just, I don't believe in God. None of my friends were Christians, and the ones that I knew who were Christians, I thought that was pretty silly. I didn't go to church. We never talked about God. I put God in the category of a different trinity, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, and God. In my mind, that's where he belongs.
Santa Claus. Yeah.
Santa Claus, right, that kind of thing. And it wasn't until I was about 17 years old that somebody took me to church, and I heard a message from a preacher. And I didn't believe what he was saying, but he did. He was speaking with passion. He had a Bible in his hand. And guess who the preacher was? Chuck Swindoll.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my goodness.
I didn't know who he was,
Yeah.
but I left with lots of questions, and I asked this friend's father to talk to me about science and evolution and the Bible and other religions, and how can you believe a book that's 2,000 years old, and or much older than that, actually. And then he eventually said, Kirk, if you want to know if God is real, and you can't tell by everything that's around you, talk to him, ask him, but you've got to come to him on his terms. Humility and faith. I didn't really have much of either one as a teen idol atheist back in the day. But I was sitting in my sports car, parked on the side of the road, thinking about the fact that one day I could die and find out if what that preacher said was true.
My goodness.
And if there's a heaven, I wouldn't be going. And so I remember praying for the first time, and I just said, God, if you're there, I want to know. If you're real, would you show me?
My goodness.
And would you forgive me from the wrong things that I've done? Because I know I've done wrong things. And would you make me the man that you created me to be? And again, I didn't know if I was just talking into the air or what, but I had this sense when I finished that perhaps I just spoke to the God of the universe, and maybe he would answer me. And he was so kind to do more than that. He changed me on the inside, and I began going to church, and somebody gave me a Bible, and I began to follow Jesus as the Lord of my life, and everything changed from that point on.
Your family's reaction to this change in Kirk?
So I find out when I tell my mom and dad that I want to go to church, that my mom says, you do? I've always wanted us to go to church. I was a Christian when I was a little girl. My parents took me to church. But, as we got older, we just never really went. And, we wanted you kids to make your own decisions. And at that time, my parents were actually in the midst of a separation. And so this actually became something that brought our family closer together, going to church. Maybe that would help. Maybe that would bring us closer together as a family. And then all of a sudden, one by one, like dominoes, my family members started to get saved. My sisters, my mom, and then eventually my dad, and I even had a chance to baptize my father several years later. So I'm super, super grateful to the way that God worked in our family.
Wow.
So what do you attribute the moment that you went from Jesus as part of the Santa Claus and Easter Bunny Trinity to maybe I'm actually talking to the creator of the universe? That's quite the jump.
It is.
And is there a little bit of connective tissue there that you can tell us about?
Yes.
How it worked for you?
Two things immediately come to my mind. One is I realized that when you're talking about God, you're talking about eternity, you're talking about very significant things. I remembered that I was part of the ultimate statistic. 10 out of 10 people die. We can't get around it. As Phil Robertson always likes to say, we're all headed for a 6-foot hole, right? And there's only one way out of that hole. And I thought, I'm going to find out, and this is forever. And the truth is, as much as I love science, I knew that there are mysteries in the universe that cannot be explained. We don't have enough knowledge to understand a fraction of how we got here, why we're here, how it all happened. And so that alone humbled me and made me say, maybe I don't know everything. And then the other thing was I got a book from this friend called More Than a Carpenter by Josh McDowell. And that little book presented this dilemma he called the trilemma, that Jesus made such outlandish statements about himself that he was either lying, or he was a lunatic and thought he was telling the truth, but he wasn't, or he was Lord. of the universe. Those are the only three options. Later, he added legend to that trilemma. And as I read through that, it gave me the ability to open the door intellectually to examine the scriptures and the resurrection and the claims of Christ without feeling like I was believing, it was the equivalent of believing in Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy. Because so much evidence is piled up for the reliability of the scriptures, for instance. So much needs to be accounted for if you want to say that all of the universe popped out of nothing as a result of nobody designing it. And so that got me thinking, you know, I'm going to read guys like William Lane Craig. I'm going to read guys like Bruce Metzger. I'm going to read and listen to intelligent people that have devoted their life to this. And I finally became persuaded that it was not intellectually silly to believe in a creator and to embrace the resurrection as a historical fact. So that was sort of the head problem, the intellectual problem. But it was the conscience that drove me to my knees, realizing that one day I will die. And if I stand before God, I'm guilty. I'm on the hook morally, and I need his forgiveness. And so I wanted for God to change me into who he wanted me to be.
Okay,
beautiful?
let's talk about
Beautiful.
Chelsea for a minute.
Yeah, God is so kind.
How was Chelsea going on this journey with you?
Well, you know, I met Chelsea, actually, she was Mike Seaver's girlfriend. So I married Mike Seaver's girlfriend. I
Yes.
stole her out from underneath him, and best decision I ever made. But I actually met her on the set of my sister Candace's show, Full House.
Oh, okay.
She was on the set, she was visiting a friend there, and I met her. And I remember my mom saying to me one day, when I was on the set of Full House, Kirk, do you remember that girl that you met, that beautiful, brown-eyed, brown-haired girl? And I said, oh yeah, how could I forget? She's beautiful. She said, you know, I've seen her here before, and she is even more beautiful on the inside than she is on the outside. She's such a beautiful heart, such a beautiful person. That's the kind of person that I'm praying you meet and marry one day. A year later, I meet her on Growing Pains. She becomes my girlfriend. A year or so after that, we get married.
Wow.
And now we're married for 30 years.
Okay, was she a Christian at the time?
She was a Christian at the time.
Okay,
Yeah.
so she helped pull you, draw you.
No, actually.
How did that happen?
Yeah, so we were sort of, I think God captured our attention, and we were born again at relatively the same time.
Okay.
She grew up in a family that went to church. I grew up in a family that didn't go to church, but we both came to this realization that we wanted to be Christians around the same time. And then I guess it was about a year after that we met up on the set of Growing Pains. And so
Did you have anything to do with the casting of her as your girlfriend?
I didn't. I had nothing to do with the cast.
You had no choices. The execs didn't come to you and show you pictures and say, which one do you...
No. I think there was sort of a divine casting director that was
Yes.
probably behind all of this, and I'm really glad.
We believe in all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, tell us. Do you want to tell about your first kiss or
Sure.
with
Okay.
her?
Great memory. Want to
Okay.
hear about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Tell
So
that little nugget.
We could tell our first kiss.
Oh no.
you could even reenact that first kiss right now, but I don't know.
We could.
Not knowing that
But
first
it
kiss,
would
I
not
don't know
be
if that'd
prudent.
be appropriate. All right, listen.
I did.
Here's how the first kiss went down. So I'm on the set of maybe our second or third episode acting together, and in
Was
the
there a
script,
vibe already?
There's a little bit of a vibe, but I'm thinking she's so far out of my league that I would embarrass myself by even hinting that I was interested in this girl. So I was not letting on that I was
are you
interested.
sure?
100%.
Because look at all these little tiger beat pictures
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff. You
yeah.
had
By the
to
way,
think
that's you and Leo
that you
back
were
there,
like,
by the way.
Yeah, that's
Cheesy as can be, right? My kids are embarrassed about these pictures. My son says to me, Dad, the picture with you in the tank top with the snake around your neck, flexing, he's
God.
like, Dad, that was so selfish. You should have thought of us back then. I'm like,
Not a bit,
son,
baby."
you weren't even a twinkle in my eye. I don't know what to say to you.
You should have been thinking.
You should. So the story is, in the script, my character was supposed to kiss her character. in this scene that we were doing a play, like Our Town or something, and I was leaving on a train, and I'd never see her again, and I gave her a kiss goodbye and said, "Don't worry, I'll be back one day." And I'm reading this going, "Oh no, I've got to kiss her." Well, I haven't even told her that I'm inside. I'm crazy about her, and I'm so nervous. And I thought, all week we rehearsed, and I just got to that part, and I said, "And then Mike kisses Kate," and then we would just move on. And I never rehearsed that. And then it came the time in front of the audience, and we taped the episode, and I was so nervous, I had to break the ice with some kind of a joke. So for comic relief, I said, "Hold on," and I ran backstage, and I went into the prop department and rummaged through the first aid kit, and I found some Ambisol. That's like Orajel. It's that gum-numbing liquid you put on your tooth if you got a toothache. And I put it all over my lips like Vaseline. So I come out with my lips all shiny, and I say, "Okay, I'm ready," and roll the tapes. And then we play out the scene, and I kiss her, and she pulls away and looks at me.
Because you could smell it or what?
Well, no, because her lips started going numb. And she starts trying to lick it off of her lips, and her tongue freezes up, so she can't talk. And she's standing there, speechless. And I just sort of play the whole thing off cool, like, "Hey, I should have warned you. This is the normal reaction women have when I kiss them. You know, it's not you."
It doesn't seem like a nervous character to me.
Well, again, I was so nervous that I had to make a joke out of it.
I love it.
But I think it worked.
Yeah,
Because she said yes, and we're still married.
Beautiful.
I love that.
Beautiful.
How did you bridge the gap from being a nervous in love with this girl to actually seriously asking her out? How'd that happen?
Yeah, well, you know, Ambisol had a lot to do with it. I bought lots of stock in Ambisol since that day. You know, I had tickets to go to a Michael W. Smith concert.
There you go.
Nice. Yeah, there
And,
you go.
you know,
Because he's been around forever.
Because he's and I was like, hey, and I found out that she loved Christian music, and I thought, there's no way there's no way she could be a Christian. And then I thought, because in my mind, I was a brand new Christian, and I always knew you had to carry your own cross, you had to bear some kind of a burden. And I thought, if I meet a girl, she's either going to be gorgeous or godly. I had no idea you could find one that would be both. You did, right? And I thought, well, wow, this is amazing. I hit the jackpot. I've got to ask her out. So we went to a Michael W. Smith concert.
Does he know that? He does now.
I don't know.
Hi,
Michael. So my mom found her in an elevator in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and asked her how old she was and that she wanted her to meet me, and that's how we met.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a random meeting at an
Wow.
elevator.
So you didn't meet her in an elevator. Your mom met her in an elevator.
And my
That's
mom
it.
looked at her and started talking to her.
See, that's what happened with my mom. She set me up with my wife, too.
There it is.
Yeah.
So
Thank God for moms.
you have
Thank
one
you,
more
Mom.
to go.
Love
One of ours is married. The other one needs help from mom,
I
apparently.
need to go visit some elevators.
Yeah.
Get some Ambisol.
Okay, first of all, before we get too far into the interview, what's up with the facial hair?
Oh, this?
Yeah.
Oh.
What's going on there? I mean,
You know, I just figured I had a choice. Now that I'm 50, I could stay clean shaven and just kind of keep that aging teen idol look, or I could grow the beard and go for the youthful mature man look. And I figured youthful mature man was far more appealing than aging ex-teen idol.
aging ex-teen idol.
And you know, someone once said to me, they said, "Kirk, you know, beards are all the rage now, right? You see guys wearing beards all the time." And one guy, I was like, "Yeah, it's kind of a trend." And a guy looked at me and he goes, "Hey, look, man, we've got words for people who don't have beards: women and children. Grow your beard." And I was like, "Bro, all right, I received that. I'm gonna go grow my face sweater, and I'm gonna wear it proudly."
Okay. So turn into takeaways and ask us a question.
Uh-oh.
Because that's what you
That's
do
not
here
on
on
here.
TBN.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And it better be
You're a
good
sharp-
because
you're-
I'm just going to sit here and
until I come up
yeah,
with
it's
a
just
great
going to be
question.
complete dead air until okay. So ball's in your court, Kurt.
Okay. Well, you know, I can't help but notice, you know, you're pretty stylishly dressed. You're a sharp-dressed man.
Okay.
You know, I mean, that's no surprise. But I can't dress myself like this. My wife has got to go and buy me. If this were me, I would have a sweater that made me look like Mr. Rogers.
Okay.
But she gets the one with the racing stripe on the side to kind of offset that. But you're always looking slick and sharp. And does your wife pick out your wardrobe, or is this all you?
It's me.
It's you.
In fact, I pick out her
dresses me.
wardrobe.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
You have flipped the
He
script.
would rather pick out my wardrobe more, I
Yeah.
think.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Just a
I'm
gift.
not sure that this is par.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a gift.
But it is, yeah.
My questions just get harder if you let
Okay,
me keep going.
Keep going. One more.
I'm not playing.
Just do takeaway. Go. Come on,
Wow.
Kurt. You're a veteran. You've been doing this all
No,
your life.
I don't know what else to ask you. I could.
Insert crickets in editing.
All right, I've been on the praise program for so long,
Yeah.
and obviously there has been a huge evolution of the Praise the Lord set. When I first went on Praise the Lord, I mean, I was surrounded by cherubs and Jesus on a white horse, and I was sitting in something a lot more gold than this blue chair. Are you the set decorator that started to change things, or was it you? How did all this happen?
It's all him.
There it is.
Look, and that's an amazing
Great
question.
question.
Honestly,
He's always
seriously.
wanted to tell this part.
The reality is that when Lori and when the second generation of TBN fully started, and that was when my lovely parents, Paul and Jan Crouch, went to be with the Lord. Okay, when my mom passed away, then here we are. Okay, and there was an interesting time, Kirk, where we were a little bit, is this my mom and dad's thing or is this our thing? And do we do the what would Paul and Jan do, or do we turn it into what would Jesus do in our generation? And to answer your interesting question a little deeper than maybe you thought I was going to, I would say that TBN was spoken into existence by God. Literally, my mom and dad heard the voice of the Lord simultaneously. I've released you from your work here. My dad looked at my mom and said, "You're not going to believe what the Lord just said to me." She said, "No, I will. He just said the same thing to me. He's released us from our work here."
When they
So
work a different job. so
They
quit.
quit a job, and then my dad's sitting 3 months later, and the Lord says, "Call Angel Lerma." My dad calls. The secretary says, "Paul, Mr. Lerma's not available." He was the owner of a TV station. Wait a second. Hold. I might hear him coming down the hallway. And he answers, and my dad says, "Mr. Lerma, I called you a few months ago. You had no interest in selling your channel, but I wanted to call you again today to see if anything had changed." Long pause on the phone. He said, "Paul, I just walked down the hallway. We were in a board meeting. We just voted to sell this channel. Did you know that?"
Channel
And he
40.
said, "No, but
Yeah.
based on that, I'd like to come see you." That was TBN's first station, divinely orchestrated by the Lord's timing. How do you answer that, Kirk? Except God spoke to my parents, released them from their old job. God spoke at the time a guy's walking down a hallway after just selling his station or voting to sell it. Okay, so he had a deal done by the end of that day, business day, that started TBN. So what is that, and how does that relate to gold chairs? It's literally that God's voice spoke this ministry into existence. Your audition for Growing Pains started you on a pathway that ended you here. God's voice spoke TBN into existence. Paul and Jan Crouch, 1973, and here we are. So what does that mean we do? We're not responsible for TBN. It is God's voice spoken into existence. We steward it in our generation.
What
That's
does
all
that
we're
have to do
doing.
with gold chairs?
Okay. What that means is when it was our turn, there was 3 or 4 months we were a little confused. I remember in this building going into a conference room, and before pausing into an important meeting, I'd pause at the door and say, "Lord, be with me. You know, Holy Spirit." No, wait, Dad, do I, and I didn't know who I needed, at the time. I don't know why I thought that, but it was just something that I was going through personally. So I was wondering if I was supposed to embark Paul and Jan. Now they're in heaven. Are they looking over? And am I supposed to do what they were going to do in this meeting? Okay. I have a nighttime dream. My dad is sitting with me, and I literally say to him, what am I supposed to do about this situation? You know, there was no question, there's no words, but in my mind, I was like wanting to know a bunch of stuff from him. And he smiled at me and left in the dream. And when I woke up from that dream like this, I mean, nighttime dream, woke up, it felt like the Lord was communicating to me, it's not my time anymore. I know the answers to all the questions that you might have, but I'm doing something. I could help you if I could, but I'm here in heaven. It is your time. Okay. When the Lord communicates that to a second generation couple in that bold of a way, a nighttime startled dream, then what that says to you is it's our time. Our time meant we wouldn't be comfortable sitting in white and gold chairs. That meant our generation was going to start seeing a bit of a shift and a directional piece that was putting TBN to a larger audience. You're part of this very specific plan, Kirk, and what you're doing, even with takeaways. Think of who you've been interviewing lately, all these great guests and what they're really, you know, kind of adding to the 24-hour output of what we're trying to communicate to a sick and a dying world. And so ultimately, in our generation, we had to, in essence, make it us. We are more comfortable sitting in this set under these lighting conditions, under these furnishing conditions, under this environment. You're here comfortable. We're here comfortable. It represents our generation. We had to change that, and we did it radically, and we felt empowered to do it at the same time.
Your passion for what you stand for. You are a pillar, I will say, in Hollywood, standing up for values on every front, for God, for all things pure and holy and moral and all that good stuff. How does that play in your life right now with your kids?
Well, as far as the pure and holy and moral stuff, remember, I'm an actor. I could be faking this whole thing.
I know, but you do it so well. You've done it. You have done that for years here on TV, and you have stood for such beautiful things, and I commend you for that, because it's a dog-eat world.
Yeah.
Dog-eat-dog up there.
You know, what I am constantly reminded of is that those who are on pedestals, either self-made pedestals or pedestals that other people put you on, often it's a setup for a great fall.
Sure.
And we've seen so many people within the family of faith faceplant and make terrible mistakes that are not only devastating to their own lives and ministries and careers, but to the lives of the people around them that have so trusted them and depended upon them. And so I am always very cautious, and I really do feel like, you know, the spine that holds me up, the only pillar that I depend on is the fear of the Lord, which is the beginning of wisdom, the Bible says, and just understanding that God's given me so much more than I deserve. If He gave me what I deserve, I would be a pile of smoking ashes on this coffee table, and I recognize that. And yet, the fear of the Lord has brought me to a place of a love for God. Jesus is all important to me because He's forgiven me, He's granted me eternal life, and I want to live my life in a way that says thank you. And I know that's a daily thing of working out my salvation with fear and trembling. So thank you for your kind words and your encouragement. That puts wind in my sails to keep going. And I want to finish well. I want to honor God and my family, and I want to hear well done at the end of the race.
Are you ever going to put any darkening in your beard, or are you just going to kind of let it go white?
I don't know. It's just, you know, they say something about it, white whiskers being wisdom.
Yes.
And so
you're going to let it go. You're not going to darken
You must be rivaling Solomon for the wisest man in the world with as much silver as I see in your hair.
Okay. Whatever. Yeah, my dad didn't lose a hair on his head, so I pray that that's my lot in life too. Then when you come here, you care about a lot of modern day issues. You care about things, and you're strategizing to talk things out with the Dennis Pragers of the world and all these great interviews that you're doing here. And where do these subject matter kind of things come from? Where are you piecing together your thoughts in regard to your interviews that you're doing here?
What I love about doing takeaways is I get to take the questions that wake me up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and get me on my knees praying, and talk about them with thought leaders who have done extensive work in these areas. So to talk with Dennis Prager about how politics influence culture and how certain sets of values create the world that our children will live in the future. Or to talk to Mike Huckabee or talk to Dinesh D'Souza about atheism and education, or to talk about socialism, communism versus Western civilization. These things are fascinating to me. When I was a kid, I didn't think about any of this stuff. But now that I'm a parent, I realize these things matter because these are the ideas that shape the worlds that our kids are going to be living in. So I love it, and I think I'm just naturally curious about things, and I like to learn, I like to grow, and I figure if I'm interested in these subjects, I think other people would be too. So to be able to have the conversation out in the open like this makes for a great talk show.
You and Chelsea homeschooled your kids.
Yes.
The whole time? Or did you start at, how did that work for you guys? And why did you do it?
So when our kids got to school age, we found a great little private Christian school that our kids went to, and we absolutely loved it. And then we got to junior high and high school age, and we weren't feeling comfortable with the options that were available to us. And someone said, have you ever thought about homeschooling your kids? And I thought, homeschooling your kids? Like, I'm not a teacher. I mean, come on. I mean, who homeschools their kids?
Right.
I mean, do you have to be Amish to homeschool your kids? And don't you care about the education of your children? Yeah. I mean, are you going to really try to teach them history and science and math and all this? Now, I realized the very best thing I did for my family at that age, at that stage of their life, was to pull them out of school and to home educate our children. And I've learned so much about it. I mean, there's so much curriculum. There is so much community and networking available. There is so much help and assistance. And not only that, you can tailor your children's education to what fits their strengths and their learning styles and your family dynamic. I was traveling a lot. And so we could create a schedule that allowed us to move together and create our own schedule. And in fact, I'm actually making a documentary right now together with you here on TBN that's all about the homeschool movement, which has doubled since COVID came along. It's quadrupled in the last 20 years, and half of that growth has been in just the last couple of years since all of the government reaction to COVID shut down schools, sending kids home into their families, and now parents are realizing what their kids are being taught in public government schools, and they're saying, oh my goodness, I can't send them back to this.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you stood firm. And I think, Kurt, I think what we're saying is that it is very noticeable by all of us that you know, in a way that made a difference, you stood, and if that's been painful, if that's caused problems, at least we're here 2022 saying thank you for what you've done and the life that you've lived all these years.
Thank you for saying that. That is very encouraging to me, and that means so much to me. I think, like you, I want to hear at the end of this journey, well done, my good and faithful servant. I don't want to fail. And someone who's been inspiring to me in that regard is Billy Graham. I think here's a man who committed himself to the gospel, and he never got caught up in moral controversy. And, you know, I can understand why so many do, because we're so easily drawn toward, our lower nature and the distractions of the world, like a moth seems to be drawn toward a flame and just destroys itself. And that's why I remember that I'm a man just like everybody else, and the only thing that keeps me from heading toward the flame is the kindness, the grace, and the mercy of God. And I recognize it. And I think it's a great place to be, is always on your knees, always dependent, always recognizing that you're one bad decision away from losing everything. And so I'm thankful for inspirations like Billy Graham, and I'm thankful for your encouragement.